Right now, you can make fire in seconds. You turn on the gas, you strike a lighter, and a flame appears. You barely think about it. But imagine having none of that. No gas stove, no lighter, no matches. You are an ancient human, and you need fire. Not tomorrow, tonight. Because fire means warmth. It means light. It can help protect your group, and it can make food easier to eat. But fire has another side. It can burn you. And when that happens, there is no emergency room waiting nearby. No doctor. No modern burn treatment. Just you, your injury, and the people standing beside you. So how did ancient humans survive burns? The answer begins with something scientists only recently became much more confident about. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans did not simply find fire. At some point, they learned to make it. In 2025, researchers published evidence from Barnham in Suffolk, England, dating to about 400,000 years ago. They found heated sediments, fire-damaged stone tools, and 2 fragments of iron pyrite. Pyrite can produce sparks when struck against suitable stone. The researchers argued that this combination provides the oldest known evidence of deliberate fire-making. That changes the picture. You are no longer imagining ancient humans simply waiting for lightning to start a fire. You are imagining people who could create fire when they needed it. But that ability came with a cost. The same technology that could keep you alive could also injure you, and your skin would not care how important the fire was. A flame only a few centimeters away could still cause serious damage. The first thing you would feel is heat, then pain, then you would pull away, but the injury would continue after your hand left the flame. Burned tissue can swell, the skin can blister, and deeper burns can damage nerves and other tissues. For you, that difference is obvious, because modern medicine has names for different types of burns. For an ancient human, there was no classification system. There was only the injury, and the question of what to do next. This is where the story becomes difficult. We have no prehistoric medical manual explaining how someone treated a serious burn, no written instructions from 100,000 years ago, no fossil that simply tells us this person was burned by their campfire. So scientists have to reconstruct the story from indirect evidence. And one of the most important clues is not a burned human body. It is the fire itself. At Chesowanja in Kenya, researchers reported evidence of fire associated with hominin occupation more than 1.42 million years ago. The study was published in Nature in 1981 by J.A.J. Gowlett, J. W.K. Harris, and colleagues. The evidence included burnt clay found at an archaeological locality with stone artifacts. But there was an important limitation. Burnt material does not automatically prove that humans deliberately made the fire. Natural fires can also burn landscapes. That uncertainty matters, because controlling fire and creating fire are not necessarily the same achievement. At Swartkrans Cave in South Africa, another clue appeared. In 1988, C.K. Brain and A. Sillant examined altered bones from deposits dated to roughly 1.0 to 1.5 million years ago. Their analysis found heating consistent with temperatures produced by campfires. The evidence supported early hominin use of fire. But again, the archaeological record is cautious. It can show heat. It can show burned materials. It can show where those materials were found. It cannot always tell you exactly who started the flame or what happened when someone got too close. And that is where Barnham becomes important. Around 400,000 years ago, people were occupying a landscape in what is now southern England. At Barnham, researchers found heated sediments and fire-cracked flint. But they also found something much more unusual: iron pyrite. The mineral was locally rare. That makes its presence especially interesting. The researchers argue that it had been brought to the site and that it could have been used to create sparks. For the first time, you can begin to picture the problem differently. You are not simply protecting a naturally occurring flame. You are carrying knowledge. You know which materials matter. You know how to produce sparks. You know how to turn a spark into fire. And once humans could reliably create fire, another problem became unavoidable. You had to live close to something that could burn you. And sometimes, one mistake was enough. The first problem is obvious: pain. A serious burn can damage more than the surface of your skin. If the injury reaches deeper tissue, nerves can be damaged too. Your hand may become swollen, movement may become difficult. And depending on the severity, the injured area can become extremely vulnerable to infection. Today, you can clean a burn, you can cover it with sterile dressings. A hospital can monitor you for complications. An ancient human had none of those systems, but that does not mean they had no way to respond. Humans have been caring for injured group members for a very long time. One of the clearest archaeological examples comes from Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan. The remains there date to roughly 45,000 years ago. Several Neanderthal individuals had serious injuries and physical limitations. The most famous is Shanidar I. His skeleton shows multiple abnormalities. His right arm was severely impaired. He also had injuries affecting other parts of his body. Yet he survived long enough for some of those injuries to heal. That does not prove that Neanderthals had organized medicine. It does not tell you exactly what they did for burns. But it tells you something important. A prehistoric human did not necessarily have to survive an injury alone. Someone else could provide food. Someone else could help with movement. Someone else could remain nearby. That changes the meaning of a burn. Imagine your hand is injured beside the fire. You cannot hunt normally. You cannot carry heavy objects. You may struggle to protect yourself. But the group does not necessarily leave you behind. Your survival can become a group problem. And this matters because fire was becoming more than a source of warmth. It was becoming part of daily life. At Gesher Benot Ya'aqov in what is now Israel, researchers found evidence of controlled fire use dating to roughly 790,000 years ago. The site contains burned plant remains, wood, and flint. The evidence suggests that fire was being used repeatedly at the site. That means humans were not simply encountering fire once. They were returning to it, using it, and likely building their daily activities around it. But there was another danger. The fire did not have to touch you directly. You could fall into it. You could stumble while carrying burning material. A spark could ignite dry grass. A burning branch could collapse. And in an environment without modern firefighting, a small accident could become much larger. This is where your ancient environment becomes important. You are not standing beside a modern stone fireplace. You are sitting beside a fire surrounded by natural materials, wood, grass, dry vegetation, animal hides, and people. Everything around the flame can become part of the accident. A burn, therefore, was not always just a skin injury. It could change what happened next. You might have to stop moving. The group might have to stop with you. Food gathering could become harder. Travel could become slower. And if the injury became infected, the problem could continue long after the flames disappeared. Modern medicine gives you antibiotics, wound care, pain control, and surgery. An ancient human had none of those. Yet humans repeatedly survived injuries serious enough to leave permanent marks on their skeletons. Shanidar is one example. And that raises a deeper question. How much of prehistoric survival came from the individual, and how much came from everyone else? Because if you were injured beside a fire 50,000 years ago, the most important person might not have been the strongest hunter. It might have been the person who stayed beside you. But fire created another possibility. Sometimes, the thing that injured you was also the thing that saved you. A controlled fire could make food safer to eat. It could provide warmth. It could provide light after sunset. And it could help keep dangerous animals away from a sleeping group. So your ancestors were dealing with a strange trade-off. The fire was dangerous, but not having fire could be dangerous too. And once humans began depending on it, walking away was no longer simple. That is where the story gets stranger. There is one more problem. You could survive the burn, but you still had to live with the fire. For ancient humans, fire was not just something dangerous sitting beside the shelter. It was one of the most useful technologies they had. It changed food. It changed warmth. It changed darkness. And it changed the places where humans could live. At Gesher Benot Ya'aqov, repeated fire use around 790,000 years ago shows how deeply fire had become connected to daily activity. At Barnham, around 400,000 years ago, the evidence suggests something even more controlled. Humans were apparently selecting materials capable of producing sparks. That is not just finding fire. That is understanding a process. You need the right material, the right contact, the right force, and enough patience to turn a spark into a flame. But every improvement creates a new possibility for failure. The more often you use fire, the more opportunities you have to get burned. Today, you barely notice this risk. You turn a stove on, you cook, you turn it off, you use an oven. You know that the metal is hot. You understand the danger before touching it. That knowledge is part of modern life. But the physical danger itself has not changed. A flame still damages human tissue, heat still causes burns, and the human nervous system still reacts with pain. What changed was your relationship with the danger. Your ancestors gradually learned where fire could be placed, how large it should be, what materials could feed it, how to carry it, and how to keep it under control. Those lessons did not require a scientific understanding of combustion. You did not need to know about oxygen. You did not need to understand chemical reactions. You only needed to learn what happened when you changed something. Too much wood. The flame grows. Too little. The fire disappears. A dry branch. The fire spreads quickly. A wet branch. It struggles to burn. This kind of practical knowledge could pass between generations. A child could watch an adult. The child could imitate the movement, and eventually, the knowledge could become part of the group's routine. That may be one of the most important things about ancient fire. It was not simply a tool. It was knowledge shared between people, and that brings you back to the burned hand. Imagine that you are sitting beside the fire. Your hand is injured. The pain has not disappeared. You cannot use it normally. Someone in your group brings water. Another person moves the burning wood farther away. Someone else stays beside you. You are not receiving emergency medicine, but you are not completely alone either. That distinction may have mattered enormously. The archaeological record cannot tell us exactly how an ancient human treated a burn. There is no 50,000-year-old medical note describing a wound. There is no fossil that preserves the entire sequence of an accident. So we have to stop where the evidence stops. We know humans were using fire hundreds of thousands of years ago. We know some sites preserve repeated evidence of fire. We know later prehistoric humans could deliberately produce sparks. And we know prehistoric people sometimes survived serious injuries long enough for their bones to heal. What we cannot honestly say is exactly what an ancient group did after every burn, but we can reconstruct the larger problem. Fire gave humans enormous advantages, and it introduced enormous risks. You could use it to survive the cold. You could use it to process food. You could use it to illuminate darkness, and you could still get burned by it. That contradiction has never disappeared. The difference is that your world now hides much of the danger behind switches, handles, insulation, warnings, and emergency medicine. Your ancestors had the flame directly in front of them. They had to learn its behavior through experience, and sometimes they learned the hardest way possible. A burned hand beside an ancient fire may have looked like a simple accident, but behind that accident was something much bigger. A species learning to control one of the most powerful forces in its environment. Fire could hurt you. Fire could feed you. Fire could warm you. Fire could protect you. And eventually, fire became so deeply woven into human life that you stopped thinking about how extraordinary it was. You simply turned on the flame and expected it to appear.